Our focus this morning, the Knox County trustee race. Again, that seat is open. We just heard from two Republicans in that race. One of them will move on to the general election. Their opponent will be this man. His name is Dave Cazalet, and he is the Democrat in this race. Sir, I'm going to start with the same question we asked the two Republicans. Why are you running, and what can you bring to this office?
Well, the first thing is I have a spirit of service, which has been that way all my life. In high school, that aptitude test showed that I was, that was my field, to be of service. In school, I was in the seminary studying to be a priest, spent years in the Marine Corps, got out and came back to Tennessee Tech, and came in the back door of the newspaper and went to the front. As you may both know, I'm sure you do, that it takes a lot of integrity to tell the public what they need to know, because sometimes people don't like to hear it. And my whole life has been to stand up for the truth, and that's what I intend to do. The office will be transparent. We'll get back to sending out those monthly reports. And then I was a grant writer for two community colleges, including Pellissippi State. I handled $30 million worth of federal grants that I won. I was what was called the principal investigator, which means that I was responsible for all of those dollars. I had the federal government looking over my shoulder. We never had any problem in the 5 years that I was in handling that money. So I feel I had to do that. And that newspaper, at the three community newspapers I worked for, there were about 30 employees at each one.
Mr. Cazalet, as an old newspaper guy myself, I appreciate that and the significance of that. I did want to ask you a little bit more about sort of the nuts and bolts of this job, though. So what kind of banking experience have you got? If you're going to be elected, you're going to be sort of the county's banker, and you're going to be handling hundreds of millions of dollars. Give me some assurance in terms of your experience in that regard.
Well, I'm not a bank, never have, but I think that the $30 million of federal funds that I took care of is an example that I can handle.
And what about management experience? This is an office that you heard, we've got 5 satellites, we've got a main office downtown. This is an office that it turns over millions of dollars of extra money to Knox County. How are you going to assure the folks who are watching you that you can manage that office with 30-some employees and 5 satellite offices?
Well, as you know, Jim, in my 20 years in the newspaper business, it was becoming more and more difficult to make a profit. And each of those newspapers, there were about 30 employees. So I have lots of experience in managing. That answer your question?
And I wanted to follow up on the delinquent taxes question that we asked the Republicans. Do you think the idea of going after people with delinquent taxes is a good one?
I don't like the going after them. I want to collect the money. I want to work with them to help them pay their tax, find ways for them to do that. For me, everything will be on the table, whether we have 5 offices or less, how much we get in interest from the money that's not being used, that's sitting idle. Like Mr. Jacobs, I want to have a citizens advisory panel. Only mine wouldn't just be bankers. It would include other people. It would be a diverse.
Fair enough. And you rightly said going after. I perhaps overstated that in our conversation. That wasn't necessarily how they framed it either. It was just ensuring that we do a good job of reaching out to those folks. I want to ask you a political question, sir. You're running as a Democrat. Why does party matter in this race?
Well, as you know, Democrats are outnumbered in Knox County. However, I used to be a Republican. I was the county chair for Robert Dole's campaign for president in Monroe County, Tennessee, when I was the publisher of the Sweetwater Monroe Advocate. I voted for Senator Baker a number of times. But the Republican Party has just left me behind by their drift to the right. And so now I'm a proud Democrat.
And does the party matter in this office in particular as a banker of the county?
You know, that's the wonderful thing about this office. It's not a policy office. That's other people's job. I would say I want to work. I don't think that the trustee needs to take a position on these issues. If they do, then it becomes partisan, and I don't want the office to be partisan.
Mr. Cazalet, we so appreciate the conversation and wish you a happy rest of your Easter, and thank you for making time for us, and best of luck, not just in the primary, which you're the only Democrat, but also in the general. Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it very much. Thank you.
We're back with our talk around right after this.